Also, we had the incredible privilege today to learn Maseches Yevamos Daf Yud, and just a short review of just some of the salient points. Remember, again, the Gemara went on to discuss whether or not Rebbe holds of the principles of Rabbi Chia as espoused on Tes Amud Beis. So the Gemara goes back and forth with that a little bit. The Gemara then goes back and focuses on the exchange between Rebbe and Levi, where Levi wanted to suggest that there was a 16th case in the Mishnah, but ultimately Rebbe says to him, "Kimedumali she'ein lamoach bekad kado." It appeared that this person doesn't have a brain in his head. So first of all, we discussed the beautiful idea about Rav Aaron Kotler, who explained that sometimes it is the role of a Rebbe to sharpen his Talmidim, and specifically to get his Talmidim to think before they speak. Hence the sharp retort of Rebbe. Nevertheless, the Gemara explains that Levi himself went on to go ahead and keep his own listing, and Rebbe felt that there was an opportunity to add a 16th case, and that was the case of Anusas Aviv. So spend a moment on that case. Remember, this was the situation where Yaakov violated Leah. They had a son, Reuven. Reuven had another paternal brother, Shimon. Yaakov dies, and Leah, the woman who he violated, ends up marrying Shimon. So therefore, again, Reuven's mother is now married to his paternal brother. So halacha l'maisa, now Shimon passes away, in which case Reuven's sister-in-law, who also happens to be his mother, has now fallen before him for yibum. So we've already explained that, of course, in any erva situation, yibum can't occur. Yibum can't occur. The interesting discussion that the Gemara then got into was the following scenario, which is, was it permitted for Shimon, Yaakov's son, to marry Leah, the woman who Yaakov violated? And we've seen this is a fundamental machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon on how to darshan the pasuk v'lo yigale kinaf aviv. That is the prohibition of Eshes Aviv, the father's wife, only in a matrimonial situation, if the father married someone, or halacha l'maisa, any woman with whom the father had relations, by definition, is prohibited to his son. So this is a machlokes, and it appears that it's this machlokes that kind of drove Levi to really want to include a 16th case. Okay, the Gemara goes on and explains that. We then went into, this was the part of the Gemara that we ended with, and the part that's going to be a good part of tomorrow's daf as well, which is a fundamental situation. What happens if someone did chalitza? So we could keep our typical case, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon passes away, and his widow falls to his brothers. In this case, again, what has happened? Reuven does chalitza, but then he decides, he has chalitza remorse, and he decides that he wants to marry his sister-in-law. So he did chalitza, and now he goes ahead and he marries her. So what's the halacha here? What's the halacha? So ultimately, again, remember, so we had a machlokes Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish said that halacha l'maisa, who ein chayiv ala chalutza karis, va'achin chayavna ala chalutza karis. V'alatzar, so Reish Lakish says as follows. When it comes to the actual, so let's assume for a moment, just to kind of round out the case, Shimon, the deceased brother, had two wives, Rachel and Leah. So remember, Shimon dies, Reuven does chalitza with Rachel, and now he decides to go ahead and remarry Rachel. So what's the halacha? So Reish Lakish says that if Reuven remarries Rachel, for Rachel, who's the sister-in-law he did chalitza with, there's only a lav, only a lav. However, if you were to go ahead and marry the chalutza, if you were to marry the co-wife, the Leah in this case, then ultimately again it would be chiyav karis. That's Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan explained, Rabbi Yochanan says, on the other hand, once one brother does chalitza, so then again, if any of the brothers were to marry any of the wives, either the wife who did chalitza or the co-wife, it would only be a lav. So once again, a fundamental machlokes. A man goes ahead, brother dies, leaves behind two wives, surviving brother does chalitza with one of the wives, and then after chalitza wants to remarry her. What's the halacha? So Reish Lakish says, if you remarry the wife who you did chalitza with, it's a lav, but if you remarry her co-wife, it's a kares. Furthermore, only the brother who did chalitza is only subject to a lav with the sister-in-law with whom he did chalitza, but any other brother who would attempt to marry would be a chiyuv kares. Rabbi Yochanan, on the other hand, once one of the brothers does chalitza, the entire family has been downgraded to a lav situation. So should any of the brothers go ahead and marry either the chalutza wife or the co-wife, it would only be a lav. We'll see in tomorrow's daf that the fundamental machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Shlakish is really focused on how do we look at the actions of the individual brother. Do we look that when one brother acts, he's acting on behalf of all of the brothers, and therefore halacha l'maisa, again, whatever his status is, that is the status of all the brothers. Similarly, again, the wife who has chalitza, she's acting on behalf, so to speak, of all of the wives. So therefore, whatever her status is her co-wife status. That would seem to be the position of Rabbi Yochanan, versus Reish Lakish, who says, no, we look at the brother who did chalitza kind of on his own, and the other brothers are in a different category. The wife who did chalitza on her own, and the co-wife in a separate category. Okay, shkayach, Freilich and Purim, and looking forward to continuing tomorrow.